Lee Zeldin from New York and Leonard Lance in New Jersey say the changes in the state and local tax deduction are unacceptable. So you can bet House Republican leaders are going around to northeastern state Republicans, seeing where they stand on this tax package.
A lot developing at this hour. What are we hearing from Democrats now that they've had a look at this plan, Mike?
That's right, Sandra. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says his side intends to fight this tax reform package tooth and nail.
This plan is a tax burden that ought to be on the backs of the wealthy and the biggest corporations, but instead it drops it squarely on the backs of the middle class.
Some top Republicans here on Capitol Hill are hopeful some Senate Democrats will eventually support the final tax package, but they are clearly not there yet. Sandra?
All right, Mike Emanuel, thank you.
Keep in mind they passed that budget by 2 votes. Just 2. Meanwhile, on board Air Force One right now, President Trump heading to Hawaii, Pearl Harbor as we speak. First stop on his trip to Asia. Could go 10, 11 days now amid growing tensions with North Korea. And that's going to be topic number 1. Rich Edson live at the State Department for more there. And Rich, good morning. What is confronting the president and perhaps confronting North Korea at the top of this agenda?
Good morning, Bill. And the first few stops of this trip for the president and his delegation will be Japan, South Korea, and China, countries that are either under threat from North Korea or, in the case of China, allied with North Korea. So just before he left the South Lawn of the White House this morning, about an hour ago, the president says he is expecting good things from this trip.
I think we're going to have great success. We'll be talking about trade. We'll be talking about, obviously, North Korea. We'll be enlisting the help of a lot of people and countries. We'll see what happens, but I think we're going to have a very successful trip. There's a lot of goodwill.
For Japan and South Korea, President Trump's visit is a show of support of the 2 U.S. allies, where the United States has maintained a military presence since the middle of last century. A senior administration official says, unlike his secretaries of state and defense and his vice president, President Trump will skip a visit to the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea because it's becoming cliched. A senior administration official also says China is doing a great deal to pressure North Korea, more than expected, though added it can always do more. And with that, yesterday, the Treasury Department announced that it was cutting off a small Chinese bank from the entire U.S. financial system because of alleged ties to the North Korean ballistic missile program, Bill.
Thank you, Rich. On that, there are also issues regarding the economy. And I would imagine in Beijing, China, these will be at the forefront. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. The president just a couple of days ago called the trade imbalance with China. He used the words horrible, embarrassing, and through the roof. It was a central tenet of President Trump's pitch to voters last year. It's something that the president and this administration say they are going to tackle when they go to China. Also, there are differences on Chinese cyber thieves taking information and intellectual property from U.S. companies. And there's also a dispute in the South China Sea, with China militarizing an area of disputed island. So there is plenty to discuss between the 2 countries as the president makes his trip to Beijing.
Thank you, Rich. Rich Edson, State Department. Bit of a preview there. Sandra.
For more on this, let's bring in Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace. He joins us live from Washington this morning. Chris, always good to see you.
Good to be with you, Sandra.
All right, so a busy Friday. The president has just left on this now 11-day trip. As he said, they're tacking on another day in the Philippines there. What does the president need to accomplish?
Well, I think there really are a couple of things. Certainly the most dramatic moment and the most dramatic pictures will be the president in South Korea. If he's in the capital of Seoul, he's 30 miles from the demilitarized zone, well within the range of North Korean missiles and artillery. And that will be, even if he isn't in the demilitarized zone, still a pretty dramatic statement of him trying to rally the South Koreans, to rally the Japanese, our allies in the region, to stand up to North Korea and its nuclear ambitions. And there has been talk about the possibility, and the president talked about it at various points during the campaign, about South Korea and Japan developing their own nuclear programs. That's something that China very much would not like to see, countries in the region, in the neighborhood, having their own nuclear weapons. It'll be interesting to see how much the president plays that. As I said, I think that's the most dramatic part of the trip, the most important part of the trip. clearly will be his visit to Beijing to meet with President Xi, who has just gotten 5 more years in power and really is in tremendous command of that government now, just personally, not the Communist Party, but he himself. And obviously the question there is the degree to which they can work out something on trade, as was discussed with Rich Edson, but also the Chinese applying more pressure. They seem to have done a lot, but it doesn't seem to have much